Welcome back to another edition of VU Sports Wired. I'm your host, Justin Hershey, alongside Bobby Kent, as always, and Bryce Smith joins us this week as well. We've had a busy evening here at the Vanderbilt Hustler and covering Vanderbilt sports here on West End. Men's basketball just landed two big-time recruits, which we're going to get into, but we also have a packed show for you. It's been a busy week of women's basketball as well, as head coach Stephanie White was let go after 46-83 tenure over her 5 seasons here at Vanderbilt. And men's baseball continues to be on a tear. They beat UT Martin last night. They've swept back-to-back SEC series, and we'll look forward to their upcoming series this weekend, and we'll review a bit of what happened the past 2 weekends. But first, guys, we got to react to this recruiting news on the basketball front. Jerry Stackhouse has landed his first 5-star recruit, Lee Dort. And along with him comes Noah Shelby, a talented 4-star who plays on the same team. They're actually basically related. Lee Dort is his legal guardian is Shelby's father. So this is a really unique situation and a great get for Coach Stackhouse to begin his 2022 class. So guys, what were your instant reactions? Were you surprised? How big is this for this program?
I mean, this is huge. I don't think you can state that enough. I mean, this just helps a lot for, everything going forward. I mean, it sets the expectation that Stackhouse is here to win, that, that he believes in this program, and that, getting these big time recruits to Vanderbilt shows that, you can win here at Vanderbilt. And, even going forward, just this will only help in terms of future recruiting and guys, coming in and being able to see, Stackhouse can get 5-star recruits, and this team, can be really talented. And also, I think these guys will only take steps forward in their careers too with under Stackhouse. As we've seen, he's such a good, a coach for player development, as we've seen with Disu and, Neesmith and then now Pippen. So, I mean, this is huge. I was very, very excited when I heard the news.
Yeah, just kind of echoing everything that Bobby said. Absolutely massive news for the program today. To kind of answer your question, Justin, I think it was a bit surprising out of nowhere. I know last week on the podcast, we were talking about whether or not Stackhouse was going to take the UNC job. And in the matter of, 5 or 6 days now, he's landed his first 5-star recruit in his time at Vanderbilt, and Noah Shelby, who's, one of the better high school recruits that he's landed as well. I think both guys come at positions also that are of need for the team. I mean, Lee Dort's going to be filling in the front court, which is an area that Vanderbilt has really struggled in the last couple of years. And Shelby just adds a bit of shooting to a team that could use that, as we've seen in Stack's systems. And like Bobby said, I think Stackhouse has proved his acumen when it comes to X's and O's. And for him to be able to get talent that's more, on par with some of the really good high caliber recruits that come into places like Auburn and Arkansas, and now even like Alabama, which are at the top of the conference. I think it's, extremely exciting, and the outlook is way up for Stack's program, I would say, as much as it has been since he's been here.
I absolutely agree with you guys. I think Bryce makes a crazy point that last week our conversation was, is Stackhouse still going to be at Vanderbilt next week? And now our conversation is the Stackhouse can't recruit narrative too old? And I think this is the type of signing these are the type of commitments, that really cement that idea that Stackhouse can recruit and guys want to play with him and for him. I think Lee Dort is such an intriguing prospect. I mean, we don't know a ton about either of these guys, but from what I've gathered, he's a big guy, incredibly athletic, plays above the rim, and is just so raw. And I'm going to be really excited to see how Stackhouse takes that skill set and really molds his game. I think a lot of what we saw with Saban Lee 2 years ago, you guys weren't on campus, of course, but was a lot of raw talent, a lot of raw athleticism. And I think Stackhouse put him in a situation to really succeed. And I believe he can do the same for Dort once he gets here next year. I'm really jealous that you guys are going to get to stick around and cover the career of those two guys. Flipping to the women's basketball program, there's a bit of turnover. Stephanie White has been let go. Again, I mentioned she went 46-83 in 5 seasons at the helm. And obviously this season was unfortunately cut short due to a lack of players. And look, Stephanie White was dealt a tough hand year after year. She had several injuries within the program. She had to hold walk-on tryouts my freshman year. So it was an up and down road for Coach White. But I think one of the most interesting things here is that in the past week to 2 weeks, three of the team's leaders and best players, Chelsea Hall, Autumn Newby, and Coy Love, all entered the transfer portal. Today, Love committed to a big time program in Arizona. Chelsea Hall will go play at Louisville, while Autumn Newby will move on to an SEC rival at LSU. And so my question kind of comes, do you guys think that these three transfers kind of sparked this decision by AD Candace Lee, or were these three transfers because Stephanie White was going to be fired and these players knew it?
I would think it was probably because Vanderbilt making a decision after figuring out that this is sort of okay, how do I say this? I say that this comes as a result of her firing, and because I think players moving because of that, and with the lack of success that this program has had over her tenure, it would make sense for certain players, especially talented young ones like Coy Love, to want to seek opportunities to play elsewhere. It seems that that Coach White was not able to get the best out of the team, and the university ultimately decided to move on, and I think it was time for her to go. And like you said, she was dealt with a really tough hand, but and I think Candace Lee has made it clear that Vanderbilt can be a place where winning happens and happens consistently, and Candace Lee has a lot of pride in this program, and now the university can move in a different direction.
Yeah, I'll actually go in a little bit of the opposite direction. I think that this was kind of what pushed it over the edge, more or less. I mean, obviously, we know that Candace was a member of this program, a number of years ago. So she keeps a close eye on the women's basketball team, and it's one of the major sports here on campus, and has a lot of history. And clearly, like you guys talked about, it really had been struggling the last couple of years, and then. You lose three of your top players that go to play at really, high caliber places. Clearly, it wasn't for a lack of talent or recruits that were being brought in. There's some sort of cultural, misfit going on here. Once the players get on campus, and sort of development wasn't really happening under Coach White. And like Bobby kind of talked about, I mean, yes, she was dealt a tough hand, but it was kind of time. And I think that when you look at the negative PR that came out of losing three players in the span of just a few weeks to the portal, and then those players going to, like Justin said, some top teams in the country, that's a lot to deal with. And I think Candace definitely had her eye on it, and was, keeping tabs on the program, but this almost forced her hand and said, look, this isn't getting better anytime soon. And so I think a change was needed, and it was the right move. But I definitely think that the transfers this week played a part in that ultimate decision.
I think this just cements that Candace Lee is willing to make tough decisions. I think when you look at her first year and a half on the job, to fire two coaches of major programs in Stephanie White and Derek Mason, she wants to be an agent of change on this campus, and that's really refreshing. I think you see it in the way that she carries herself, in the way that she speaks, in how passionate she is for that job, and how she's getting this $300 million building project done. So I think this gives me even more confidence in Candace Lee, because she did make a very difficult decision here. She also must have had the support of the administration, because it has been reported that Stephanie White did have one more year left on her contract. Adam Sparks of the Tennessean did say she actually was going to be back earlier in this year. And so this is a gutsy call, but it's a decision that I really respect, because I do think a change is necessary. I think what hurts to see is some of those assistant coaches are really talented. You think about Marquise Webb and Gary Reedus. They do a great job. I really do believe that. And this team's bringing in a solid class next year. They actually had a commitment just a couple days before this went down. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where this program goes. And I'm wondering what you guys think that Candace Storey-Lee should be looking for as she makes this next hire, which should hopefully try to restore Vanderbilt women's basketball to the program it was in the 90s and the early 2000s, which was a perennial SEC contender.
This is an interesting question. I mean, I think there are a number of ways that Vanderbilt can head with this decision. I mean, they can opt for someone, from Tennessee, sort of locally, like Bart Brooks from Belmont, who has brought his team to the NCAA tournament every year except for last year when the tournament was canceled, and has amassed over 100 wins in his career. And then you could also look at a guy like or Rick Insell from Middle Tennessee State, a couple NCAA appearances, and then has a couple WNBA players under his belt that he's coached. Or Vanderbilt could decide to keep it in the family and, retain sort of this continuity of this, that we've had with the hiring of Clark Lee over for football, someone who understands and sort of knows the Vanderbilt student athlete experience and can relate to those players sort of on a personal level of, hey, look, I've been through this, I can help you succeed and, and get you to your highest level. And, figure out how to do it at Vanderbilt, rigorous academic school and, and while maintaining being strong, athletically, and then also, for example, name there could be, an Ashley Early from Penn State, assistant coach, she had success in the tournament with Vanderbilt, getting to an Elite Eight. So, this, she would know what it's like as a student athlete. And I think that could potentially relate to players coming in and recruits and, maybe fix some of the culture issues that we saw or that we've seen. So definitely going to be an interesting thing to look out for. And I think Vanderbilt can head in a lot of different directions with this one.
Yeah, I think Bobby hit on a ton of points and also a lot of candidates. And I'll just kind of sum up what all those candidates have in common. And that's someone from the college ranks. Obviously, Stephanie White came from the Indiana Fever, a WNBA background and sort of a professional approach. And clearly that just didn't work out at the college level. I mean, like we just talked about, lots of talent in the program, both when she was fired and also coming in. But maybe you need someone that's a little bit more on the traditional route to get back to some of that success that you were talking about, Justin, someone that knows the college game, and someone that can relate and develop these players in a time that's really important to. I mean, these girls are together all the time. And obviously, we talked about a little bit at the top, sort of the troubles that came with a COVID season. I think going for, a surefire option, like one of those that Bobby mentioned, maybe an alum, but at least someone that has, a plethora of experience at the college ranks is sort of where this hire needs to be. And I think that Candace knows that. They swung and they missed with Stephanie White. Clearly she has an impressive resume, but, it just didn't align, and the pro and college games are different. So I think that making that switch sort of in the same way that Vanderbilt football did, that Bobby's talking about, going back to someone that knows the program could definitely be beneficial.
I agree. I think an alum is an intriguing option. I think other things to consider are there is some talent still left on this team. Briley Bartram, Brene Alexander, Jordan Cambridge, those players are still around. And although they're not a Coy Love star piece, they are really good role players. And if you put them in the right system, I do think they're a really solid group of girls. I think that this team needs someone with energy and that's going to really see on Candace Lee's level, someone who can relate to her really well, because we know Candace Lee has a special place for this program in her heart, and it's going to be in her decision making. So I fully expect her to really make a good choice, because I think this is going to be something she studies really closely and really puts a lot of time into. Moving to the diamond, the Vanderbilt baseball team is currently continuing their role that they've been on all season, essentially. 2 straight SEC sweeps. They've only lost 1 SEC game to South Carolina in a set 3 weeks ago now, and they are continuing to be led by Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter. Much of what I've read in the past week has Jack Leiter jumping Kumar Rocker in latest MLB mock drafts, and I'm inclined to believe it. The guy has been dominant. He threw 20.2 innings straight of no-hit baseball. Him and Rocker are both top 10 nationally in ERAs, strikeouts, and they're both tied with NCAA leading 7 victories, and that's both in 7 appearances. How much fun are you guys having watching these guys, and really what has stood out?
I mean, I'm having so much fun. I was thinking about it today. How lucky are we that, we get to be at a school with the #1 ranked baseball team and get to see 2 guys back to back who are going to be the top 2 picks, 1-2 or 2-1 in the draft. I mean, that's just incredible from a sports fan perspective. But I mean, also just what really impresses me most about them is consistency. I mean, even with most star players or most star pitchers, you see, they might have 2 or 3 really great starts and then they'll get roughed up, in one start. But these guys just seem to be a level above that. And they can just, every single start they're out there, they have the stuff working for them. I mean, sometimes, Leiter might not have his, off-speed pitches working, but then he was able to adapt, and then get, strike out all 16 hitters in the, no hitter with fastballs. So he I mean, they're really smart pitchers. They can mix up their types really well, and they keep hitters off balance in a way that I really haven't seen, all that much in the college game. And it's really incredible. And they both play to their strengths really well. And I'm also just really impressed with the lack of hard contact that both these guys generate. I mean, I feel like nothing is really getting close to leaving the yard, which is just, as a fan, is like, how is that even possible? I can only imagine being that, talented. But it's really, really exciting. And we are really getting to witness greatness, and it's really fun.
Yeah, Bobby's completely right. Obviously, it's a complete blast and blessing to be able to watch these guys and essentially feel like in every series you should be taking at least 2 out of 3 from the opponent. I think the thing that I've been most impressed with thus far from Leiter has just been the composure that he's shown this year. I think obviously last year he came in really highly touted recruit and we were excited about him, but this year it's kind of a known commodity that he's, going to be the guy. He's going to be someone with a target on his back. The opponents are going to give their best effort every time he goes out there. And really he's garnered a lot of national attention. And like you said, Justin, some experts have started talking about him potentially jumping Kumar, and through all of this, he just keeps himself locked in, throws his pitches. And I think what I've seen this year is just an ability to really manipulate hitters at a professional level. I think that Jack Leiter is just operating like a pro pitcher at this point, in the way that he kind of works counts and works his spots and knows, how he's facing the lineup through the game. And I think for Kumar, it's a little bit different. I would actually go against Bobby in a slight sense. Obviously, the stats are ridiculous. The stuff has been really good, but I would argue Kumar hasn't even really been as good as he can be thus far. And I think that's kind of scary. What we saw down the stretch in 2019 was downright unhittable stuff and stuff that, you don't see even at the pro level from a lot of guys. And it's the slider and the fastball when they're working in conjunction and he's spotting them well. That's kind of the repertoire of an elite ace in MLB. And I think that's Kumar's ceiling, honestly. And we haven't necessarily seen that kind of nasty, guys can't even get close to his pitches type performances that he had maybe in the College World Series when he's a freshman, but still it's been impressive, how good he's been despite that, obviously a sub-1 ERA. So I think overall, just obviously a tremendous joy to watch both of them back to back, and really a surprise to see how well Leiter has done, and an excitement to see, once Kumar kind of heats up and really pitches what I feel like can be even his best, how scary this staff can be.
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with Bryce here. I think early in the year, I thought Kumar struggled locating his fastball big time. I thought he's missing up in the zone a lot. It looked like he was overthrowing at times. And now his velocity's kind of come down. Keith Law reported that he's been hearing that Kumar's been dealing with some sort of injury, slight injury, and we're not sure what to make of that yet. But I think Kumar can improve, and I think he will. But for Jack Leiter, it's just the polish. I mean, everything is crisp, everything is quick. I will never get tired of seeing him just stand ready on the mound while a hitter steps out of the box. I mean, it is just killer stuff that just it intimidates me watching sometimes, and I know it intimidates hitters. So I think that kind of polish and the composure and the energy. I mean, the leg kick after he gets a strikeout or the occasional yell. I think Tim Corbin and him are just such a good match with the passion they have, but also how serious and calculated they are. I just have to believe Corbin just loves coaching Jack Leiter. But the lineup hasn't slouched either. I mean, this offense outscored LSU 29-7 this past weekend. Dom Keegan is back. Cooper Davis is back. And Carter Young's on a serious tear. He had a couple homers this weekend. He's up to 7 on the year. So this is a lineup that's really been producing, and it's been just kismet between this lineup and this staff. But moving forward, as they do get into series with Arkansas, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, they are going to have to stay in tandem to beat these teams because they're right up there in the rankings. But what player from this order has impressed you the most? Who have you seen that has really just hit for consistency? Who's been really a surprise even in this lineup heading into SEC play?
So I will start with an unconventional name, I guess you could say, when looking at the lineup. I think I've been really impressed with Jack Bolger in terms of just his ability to, fill in for, Isaiah Thomas when he was, or fill in for, Dominic Keegan, Isaiah Thomas, during the LSU series. And, I think he hit a couple home runs during the series and was just a really, shut off power from his bat. Just a really, kind of consistent force in the lineup all series. So I've been really impressed with him. I mean, obviously Dominic Keegan, since he's come back, has been dominant still, batting close to 400. Cooper Davis has really, turned on the firepower. And I do, I always think back to what, Coach Corbin said about him in terms of, he hit one home run. He thinks he's got, all sorts of power. And, I mean, hey, he's shown he has, he does. And, Bradfield Jr. to me is just someone I will always, watch when he comes up to bat. His ability to, get on in a multitude of ways. He can, bat for, for contact. He can also, get on with a bunt, and then whenever he's, running the bases, it's a pretty sure bet he'll end up on third. So, he's really fun to watch. I think this lineup has obviously there's a lot of different great pieces involved, but, Jack Bolger and Bradfield Jr. are really the two guys who probably impressed me the most recently. Feels like it changes every week.
Yeah, I'm gonna cheat the question a little bit because Bobby just kind of did too. Everyone. I mean that's kind of I think the theme for me at least watching this weekend, especially against LSU. I think in 2019, obviously a tremendous offense, but you had a JJ Bleday and an Austin Martin where you go, okay, these guys are just hitting at a level that's a little bit above everyone else in the lineup. And this year it feels like Bradfield's going to get on base and he's going to steal second, maybe third. And then you got Carter Young absolutely raking. Dominic Keegan's back in the lineup. He's hitting, highest. He's hitting above 400. You got Jason Gonzalez has hit a couple long bombs this year. We talked about Bolger coming in for Tate Colwick, for Cooper Davis, for Isaiah Thomas, who have all been hitting pretty well. And I think you look at a guy like Tate Colwick, who struggled a lot last year and already has 6 home runs. I think the balance in this lineup has just been incredible. And that's part of the reason that this offense has just been so consistent. And games like Tuesday against UT Martin, or maybe ones that the 2020 squad would have dropped, when Christian Little maybe didn't have his best stuff. There was a couple, just tough losses last year at the start of the year. You think of maybe a dropped home game against Hawaii, or a couple of those midweek games that kind of didn't go their way despite good pitching, which they always seem to have. And we just talked about, but this year, I think even you look at someone like CJ Rodriguez, like Parker Nolan, some of these sophomores that have just come back and from the COVID year and are hitting over 300. And CJ Rodriguez is probably the 6th or 7th guy that we would name in the lineup. And he's been tremendous and kind of, making a name for himself and establishing himself as the primary catcher. I think that's kind of the biggest difference for me that I've seen in what makes this offense really, really good. And it's something that I think can be sustainable and hopefully carry them in the postseason, given that they have so many different guys that can get a big base hit or kind of facilitate the offense.
Yeah, Bobby, Jack Bolger was also my answer. I thought it was a little confusing that Corbin, plugged him right in as a freshman, right at the top of the order when Cooper Davis went down. And he struggled. Like, he was hitting below 100 for a time there, and he has battled his way back. He's come up with a lot of base hits, really getting on base at an impressive clip. So I've been really impressed with him. But I think the poise and the maturity of Jason Gonzalez to sit in that 9-hole or that 8-hole and continue to just hit 400 is just so impressive. And it's not that flashy. He's hit a few bombs, as Bryce mentioned, but he's just a guy is going to show up every night, and he's going to give you pop at the bottom of the order. And that is invaluable. When you think about that 2019 team and Julian Infante hitting about 245, 250 at the bottom of that lineup, but he gave you so much pop and so much potential to hit home runs. It always kept a pitcher on his, aware and really having to throw good pitches even to the bottom of the order. And so Jason Gonzalez has really impressed me thus far, but Bryce said it well. It's been everyone. It really has. That's about all the time we have this week for VU Sports Wired. We will be monitoring the men's basketball transfer situation closely throughout this week. And of course, the Vandy boys host the Georgia Bulldogs this weekend, looking for their 3rd straight SEC sweep, and you will see Rocker and Leiter this coming weekend from Hawkins Field. But for Justin Hershey, Bobby Kent, and Bryce Smith, thank you for listening.